We love supporting and promoting the creators of musical theater throughout the world, and we would love to have your support as well. Go to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the Become a Patron button, because a supportive community is a strong community. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. We are heading down to New York City once again for our next guest. He is a producer, a director, a developer, a writer, a teacher, a performer. I believe he can do almost anything according to his website. So we'll have to find that out. He can do it all. Welcome to the show, Peter Michael Marino. Peter, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here virtually.
It's awesome. Thank you, Peter. So I always start off every one of our interviews with asking for a 30-second bio. So who is Pete in 30 seconds?
Pete is a guy who was born and raised in New York City and has ventured into the worlds of acting, directing, producing, writing, coaching, teaching, and occasionally designing. And he's allergic to gluten and does not have any children.
I think that was 27 seconds, but I'll take it.
Not bad. I'm timing's one of my things that I know I'm good at. The rest I'm not so sure, but timing, I have an internal clock that is
Nice. It's always good to have that.
Hard to set that. Yeah.
Now, just on a tangent for a second, has that gluten issue ever come up when you're doing theater?
Only when there's food backstage or at a party, and none of it is stuff that I can eat.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Just curious.
Yeah.
I always ask the hard-hitting questions. So I want to take it back to the beginning. When you were a kid, when you were growing up, were you always into musical theater or theater in general, or is that something that you grew to appreciate later in life?
I don't think I saw a play until I was 12 or 13.
Wow.
Yeah, I just was not exposed to the arts at all. I mean, first of all, I went to Catholic school, so the only arts was just like visual arts. And then, and my parents they're just not theater people. I mean, they are now, but they weren't when I was a kid. So no, I didn't know what a play was, but weirdly, I used to direct plays in my neighborhood and in my basement. I mean, I directed Peter Pan every Christmas. My sister was the only person in it, and myself, of course, playing multiple roles. But yeah, it's weird. I used to like. Well, we lived next door to a printer, and they would give us posters, and I would just make these posters for these events, like watch us do the Alley Cat at 4:00 today in Debbie's backyard. And then I would just get a few kids together and rehearse it, and we would do it. So I just have no idea how I knew how to do any of that stuff because I was never exposed to it.
You're basically, your life was a 1930s movie trying to put on a show in the backyard, trying to raise the money.
Yeah, totally. Really, really strange. Yeah. My dad worked for Eastern Airlines, and that was back in the early 70s, Eastern Airlines and Disney had that was a big thing. You flew Eastern to go to Disney World. So we always got all this Disney World paraphernalia. Dad would just bring home, whatever, as he would say, fell off the back of the truck. Sometimes was Pong. I think I was the first kid in the neighborhood to have Pong because it, quote, fell off the back of the truck. Yeah, it was fun. But I do think that I think I learned about storytelling from looking at Disney World brochures.
Huh.
And I was thinking about Disney today, actually. I went to the internet, which is, I think, how we met.
Yeah.
And I just had a craving to just go to Disney World today. And I asked, how can I do that? And people are sending me all these great links that you can just put on the headphones and just get a total someone strapped a GoPro to their head and just, rode every ride. I am spending the rest of my day doing that.
Wow. Well, Thank you for taking time out of your Disney World tour to talk to me today. That's awesome. So you were not really into theater as a kid. Weren't exposed to it, even though you were in New York City, which is crazy. What was the light switch moment that changed?
I think there were two. I can't really figure out which was the one, but like, I think in seventh grade, so I'd moved to the suburbs and went to public school in middle of seventh grade. And that's, by the way, I highly recommend that to any parent to take their kid out of Catholic school in New York City and then put them into public school in Long Island in the middle of the school year. Great choice. And my English teacher was also, maybe she was she directed the stage plays. I think so. And she knew I was artistic, so she asked me to do a poster for this play that they were rehearsing called Oliver. And I was like, well, I don't know what that's about. So she gave me the album, and then I just listened to the album and drew. And I think that's when I kind of first was like, oh, they're like telling a story by singing a song. And then my parents had an album collection, and I saw that they had Funny Girl and South Pacific and Man of La Mancha. And I was like, oh, these look like those things like Oliver. So I listened to them, and I would, just kind of like get really into them without really knowing what they were. I mean, I think that's just being gay. You know, I think it's just like a gay teen, like, oh, that's Barbra Streisand, so I like that. You know, I mean, I don't anymore, but I did as a kid. Oh, Mary Poppins was another one. Like, that was a big thing back then, was to like buy the soundtrack from a movie.
Yeah.
So Mary Poppins was a big one, and I used to reenact that, probably not having seen the movie. But I think the biggest one was in like 8th or 9th grade. I'm going to say it's 8th grade. We took, I think it was like 10th grade, was my first Broadway show. There was like a school trip to go into New York City to see this new play called Frankenstein.
Okay.
I believe one of the Carradine brothers was in it. I don't know which one, but it closed the next day.
No.
Which sort of, but I remember every minute of that play. I don't remember much from my life, but I remember every minute of that play. And that was the one that was like, oh, I have to see more of this. This is cool.
Very nice. It's always exciting to see that moment in your life where you go, I know what I want to do now.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I didn't know it's what I wanted to do. I thought it was just something that was really interesting that I wanted to start paying more attention to. Mm-hmm. And I actually, going back to the design thing, I really wanted to just be a designer. Yeah. So when I was looking for colleges, I was looking at colleges that had both a design program and a theater program, just in case.
Yeah. What, you don't? There's no security in theater? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, they didn't really talk about that stuff back then.
I know.
They didn't tell us it was a bad choice. Well, my parents didn't. I don't think they knew it was a bad choice. So ignorance is bliss. In my case,
awesome. So you got through the school. Did you went to college for design and theater
in Buffalo?
Okay, Buffalo. So you were close to me.
I was.
I'm in Toronto. So
yeah, I know. I used to go to Toronto. We used to go there on our days off.
Nice.
Remember one time I rode over the Peace Bridge on my bike with nothing but shorts and a tank top, and somehow got into Canada.
What?
And then somehow couldn't get back because I didn't have any identification. So that was tricky.
How did they get you? Wait, they let you in first without any ID? But
I really have no idea how I got in.
We're very trusting up here. That's why.
Yeah. Last time I went to Toronto, which was about 2.5 years ago, to teach, I came back and I had a hard time getting back into America again.
Wow.
Because they didn't know why I was in Canada for 3 days.
Huh. Well, we would have kept you. No worries.
Thank you.
Where were you? Where were you teaching? What were you teaching?
I taught for Tracy Erin Smith, who is a solo show sort of guru. In Toronto. She has a company called Solo, Soulo.
Okay.
And we just, Tracy and I just hit it off. I don't know, we met at some festival somewhere and just hit it off. And so I just, I went up there to teach, and I think I was also doing my show. Yeah, I was doing my show also at some fun comedy joint in Toronto, up some stairs. You know the one place in Toronto that has comedy that you go upstairs? That's the one.
Yeah, the comedy place with the stairs. Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
that was fun. Now I'm going to be determined to find it in the course of this interview. So.
Okay. Well, I'll wait till the end. Google it while we're talking. So you went to Buffalo for school. So you went for theater and design. Yes.
Yes.
All right. And how did it go there? What did you learn? What did you take from it?
I learned. I kind of first studied theater design on top of graphic design, and luckily they were both in the same building. And I studied. I think I studied lighting design first. Nope, set design first, and realized I was really bad at math, which is sort of important for a set designer, and not anymore because now we have computers and that does all the work for you. Yeah. And then I studied lighting design, which I did not think would involve math, but it does because there's things like wattages. So that I was bad at. So that didn't work out. And then I mostly just directed and occasionally acted. But then when I graduated, I really wanted to be like everybody else and just go to like Harvard or Yale for graduate school for acting. And yeah, auditioned for both of them 2 more times than I should have probably. And that was it. And then, basically moved back to Manhattan. I mean, I grew up in Queens, which is a borough outside of Manhattan, but I moved to Manhattan officially the day after I graduated college.
Nice. All right. So you're done college. You're back in New York City. How was it going? What was the first show that you got, either performing or directing or writing?
I was super lucky. I got cast. Well, actually, the first thing I ever did in New York was I was on the season premiere, or the first season of Club MTV, which was a dance show on MTV, which was sort of newish at that time. And our job was to show up at the Palladium, which is an amazing club in New York City, which is now a dormitory for NYU students. And we'd show up with 5 different outfits, and we would basically dance all day long. So that was my first job in New York. And then I auditioned for some weird off Broadway horror musical spoof called Slasher, and I got one of the leads in that. And then that ran for like 10 months off Broadway. And then it got moved off Broadway, and it was a spectacular failure.
Wow.
But the choreographer of that show was an unknown dancer named Susan Stroman. And she blew my mind. She was so smart and so great at taking over from everything the director didn't know. And Susan Stroman wound up becoming a multi-Tony Award winning director choreographer.
Yeah, somebody might have heard of her.
Yeah, so I learned a lot from her, from that show.
So why do you think Slasher, would it move from off Broadway to off Broadway? What did the show change, or just do you think the audience changed?
Yeah, sometimes when we throw money at something, it actually makes it worse. So that was one of the things that happened. Also, the person who moved it was a film director, and that person also wanted to redirect the show, even though it had run for 10 months perfectly in a little shithole downtown. Yeah. And this was a film director who didn't know how to direct stage stuff. And the biggest, I think the biggest sign that we were in trouble came very, very late when we were in tech and we were staging the curtain call, and the director staged it in order of appearance, which is weird when the first person on stage is the first character to die, and it's weird for them to have the glass curtain call or whatever it was. Yeah, it was really wrong. So yeah, that was a big flop.
Wow. Did you ever record I'd love to know if you recorded a cast recording.
They actually recorded a cast recording.
Did they?
It's available on cassette if you take a time machine back to 1990.
Hey, if you have a copy of a cassette, I would love to.
I do not, but I know that my friends do because they're waiting to use it against me.
I embrace everything I did when I was younger. Like, I know I did some stuff that was, questionable or not as good, but you know what? It was me, and I grew from it. So I always embrace everything I did.
Yeah, totally. Same.
Yeah. All right. So you finished that show. You've been acting, you've been performing. When did you take it to, you wanted to do some writing or some directing or some teaching and things like that?
So I got cast in Stomp, which is a big rhythm percussion show. Mm-hmm. And I was in that on and off for about 5 years. And mostly on, but I took like a year off and then I went back for the last 2. Yeah, it was while I was doing that, because even though you're on stage a lot of the time, it's only 8 people and you're on stage a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. There were lots of times where you were not on stage, and I just used that time to like write. And before I knew it, I was writing like spoof cabaret shows, like cabaret shows that made fun of cabaret shows. Yeah. And I wrote a few of those, and then started directing a lot of cabaret shows, and then and then I just sort of kept writing. I liked it.
that's I think you should put that as a quote.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, that's enough. That's all you have to do. To be an expert, you just have to like something.
Exactly. So what did you write, and what did you get up on its feet?
Yeah, so I wrote these cabaret spoofs that were starred a character that I had created in improv. I did theater sports for a very long time, and theater sports in New York kind of branched out and did like different types of shows plus theater sports, and one of them was an improvised soap opera comedy, and I had a character in that show who sort of became very popular in the stage show. And then we had like a spin-off on a local public access cable show, and the character was popular there. So then I decided to let me just give him his own show. Yeah. So that was it. And then, I don't even know. I wish I could. I mean, thank God my mom saves everything I've ever done, because I have no timeline for my own self. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. So when you started these cabarets, what year was that, give or take?
Great question. I don't know. I'm going to say everything's 1990.
Okay. We'll just assume 1990s. Awesome. So, okay. Now let's talk about the I think I contacted you first. I'm pretty sure I did. I was going through Twitter or wherever I was, and I saw something about Desperately Seeking Susan.
Yeah.
That you wrote that. So tell us a little bit about that, that process, how it began, and we'll just go through the experience of it.
Well, the interesting thing is, if I tell you the whole experience, then I'm spoiler alerting my entire show. So I'll just give you some nugget. Dear listener, I have a show called Desperately Seeking the Exit, which is the 1-hour solo show about the making of my West End musical called Desperately Seeking Susan, which was based on the movie Desperately Seeking Susan, except for my version used the music of Blondie. So, yeah, I had an idea. I wrote a treatment. I brought it to a Broadway producer. This person loved it. Before I knew it, the Old Vic in London was signed on. Before I knew it, a Tony Award-winning director was signed on. Wow. Then we had workshops and readings, and everybody loved it. And then we decided to open it in London. Then we did more workshops, got a new director. Opened October 2007, and closed the end of November 2007.
Wow.
It was a big flop. So, and then, I can't really tell you that much more because I do plan to bring the show back. And I'm assuming that people that listen to this are the kind of people that would probably want to get in on the backstage story of how a musical was made and unmade.
Oh, for sure.
But it was a really interesting experience. I have no regrets at all. My show is called Desperately Seeking the Exit, which was the first headline I read the day after my show opened.
I thought that was hilarious when I saw that's what your show was called, your one-man show. Yeah. I thought that's brilliant.
Might be
Embrace it.
I think it's Charles Spencer from the Telegraph. He said that. He actually became a friend, so that's interesting. And then I brought it to Edinburgh Fringe, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, in 2012. And then again in 2013, and then I sort of toured all around the United States and a little bit of where else did I do it? I didn't do it in Canada, actually. I don't know, United States, London. I did it in London, Australia. It feels like I did it in a lot of places. So then that kept me busy for like 2.5 years. And then I started teaching people how to do solo shows. And I did more and more of that. And then that kind of spun off into me teaching sketch comedy at a few universities. Do you guys call them unis?
No, just university.
Okay, that's right. And all the while I just still kept writing. So I brought that character with the cabaret show back, gave him another show. That's his third show. Yeah. I can't believe I'm talking in the third person about a character. A handful. And then I toured that for about 1.5 years. And then I've been doing this other show, sort of bringing us right up to today. This other show called Show Up, which is a one-man improvised show based on the horrible life experiences of the audience. So it takes the form of a typical one-person show, and I make fun of every single trope of every one-person show. But it's based on the audience as a collective, their shitty lives. Oh, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't curse. They're bad lives.
That's quite all right. If you can't swear in a theater or a podcast, oh yeah.
So they're shitty lives.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it also kind of it also, I mean, I never just do anything just to do it. There's always got to be like a there. There's got to be something universal about it. I mean, even the cabaret shows, they just had a tremendous amount of optimism and hope. And Show Up is really also just delved into like mental health stuff and social anxiety and depression, things that I dance with on occasion. Not at all during a pandemic, of course. This is the best time for anyone who's socially distant naturally.
Yep.
And then about 1.5 years ago, I turned that Show Up, into a kids show, brilliantly retitled Show Up Kids, which is actually a terrible title for a kids show if you don't know the show that it's based on. But it's too late to change it because I've been doing it for 1.5 years. And that show, I play an idiot who has to put on a kid show without any knowledge of kid shows, or shows at all. And the kids sort of, through a very clever device, help me figure out the plot and the props and the characters and the costumes and the sound and everything. And they basically create the show with me. And now that we're living under a snow globe, I adapted that show into an online show.
That's very cool.
I'm exhausted right now. Even.
Well, you know what? You need a vacation to say Disney World. That's what you need.
I'm on vacation this week.
There. Nice. So no shows for kids, nothing, just going to relax.
In my calendar, it says pandemic vacation. Nice. I can look back on it next year and go, oh, remember that?
I think we all need to put one of those into our calendars from now on.
You can't, you can't not, right? Yeah. You gotta treat yourself so that you'll be a better person the next day.
Exactly. We'll get through it and enjoy ourselves. I do have a question. Now, for just taking it back to Desperately Seeking Susan. It was in the West End. It was there for a month. And then 2 years later, it went to Tokyo. Did I read?
That's correct.
Did you get to see it in Tokyo?
Of course I did.
And what was that like in comparison?
Well, it was a brilliant production. It had a fantastic director, an amazing design team, terrific orchestrations, brilliant cast, great theater, ran for a good long time, made money, got treated like a king, stayed there for about a week. In the show, about the show, I of course bring it right up to the Tokyo production, and in that show. Because it's a more interesting story, I say that the night before opening, I flew over the night before opening, and there I am at opening. But in reality, I actually flew over a week before opening and got to go to technical rehearsals and talk to the director about things that were just weird. Mostly just go hang around in Tokyo and get a per diem. It was amazing.
Wow, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, it was really great. It was a perfect tonic for the really horrible 4 or 5 years that I had before with the other show.
Yeah. Nice. Now you got to see the opening night, obviously. What do you see a difference? What is the difference, or if there is any, between a Tokyo audience and say an American audience or a UK audience? Did you see any difference?
Okay, so American audiences, we are loathed around the world for leaping to our feet after every single thing we ever see, right? The Brits are fairly reserved throughout shows, but they are very, very enthusiastic at the end of songs and at the end of acts and at the end of the show without necessarily standing. However, since a lot of American shows have been going over there, I feel like the standing ovation is built into the show subliminally in some way. I think Blood Brothers was the first show to actually do that, where the lighting system actually makes you feel like you want to stand. Like it picks you, it's a laser that picks you up, like when a UFO comes. So, and then the worst audiences are the Japanese audiences. Now I say that with tremendous respect. When I say worst, I mean, from a performer's point of view, you are getting nothing from them. They are extremely reserved, extremely polite. And it's only at the very end of the whole thing that they show any kind of enthusiasm about it. Yeah. So the opening night, my translator, Miyoko, turned to me before the curtain went up and said, just so you know, the audiences here are very reserved. There's not a lot of clapping, not a lot of laughing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what happened in London. And I was totally wrong, because they went ballistic over the show. They just loved it. Yeah. So I don't know what the difference is.
It's interesting because I've heard that here as well. My friend does stand-up, and he had an American come up to do stand-up, and he did a set, all great, and as the end of the show, everybody was just leaving, and the American comic goes, did they not like me? What's wrong? And because I guess he's used to people coming up and talking to him and blah blah blah, after where everybody here would, okay, thank you, and just left.
Yes.
And we had the same thing with Hamilton just before it closed, because it opened here, I don't know, 2 weeks before all hell broke loose. There was an article by a couple of the leads saying, they want the audience to jump up more and cheer more and stuff like that. And I went, that's not us. That's just not who we are. I know this is because they did the tour throughout the States. That's, it's a completely different show down there than it is up here. So it's interesting. That's why I ask these questions.
Yeah, I don't, doing shows in Edinburgh is a real eye opener, because that's the whole world is there. So everyone is kind of bringing their own game to the I'm an audience member situation. And, throughout a show, you can just tell where people are from, just who is more vocal about laughing and who's more vocal about talking back and who's less, and who's drinking more, and, just so many things. So having done Edinburgh, 5 or 6 times now, I am fine with any audience. I really think, from a performer's perspective, our goal is to entertain, move, and enlighten the people that we're performing for. But I don't think that they owe us anything that we expect.
Yeah.
So I've learned to like not be judging that one person in the front row who's just stone-faced the whole time. And then I'm hating myself for an hour. It's such a waste to do that, because generally afterwards you'll find out that person just, who knows, maybe they have some kind of, mental thing that they're battling, maybe they have ADD, maybe it made them think a lot, So it's such a waste for us to be, I hate the audience tonight, they came, just, that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. They're supporting you, and they,
I tell you, when you get like, when the show that you wrote gets completely clobbered on an international scale, and it's a two big properties, the Blondie property and the Madonna property.
Yeah.
It kind of does make you kind of like loosen up a little bit about it all,
Mm-hmm.
Like you can either like take it all, like this is everything, this is art, this is theater, this is everything, or you can be like, oh, and people also like do heart surgery, and people also build buildings. Like there's other things. Like everything is not the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I've become much more casual about audiences. Let them do what they want.
Yeah, and I think the same thing needs to hold true for critics as well, because obviously you got completely different probably reviews and reception in Tokyo than you did in London, right?
Yeah.
It's so I always say when people want me to say what my opinion of a show is that I just saw, I give them what I think, and then I say, but it doesn't matter what I think. In the end, it's what you want. Most importantly, just go out and support these people, right? So, I think we have to remember that, and I think you've learned that, right?
Yeah. I always get a little itchy about the word support people. I'm a ridiculously supportive person. I love being supported, but like, isn't it more interesting to, instead of saying, I'm doing a show tonight and I'd really like you to support me, wouldn't it be more interesting to say like, hey, I'm giving you this great gift tonight, and, you're going to go for a ride and forget about your own shitty life for an hour. Yep. So kind of like flipping the script a little bit of like, I don't know if artists should always be expecting people to support them. I think that if like you're an artist, what you want to do is get your work out in the world, which is like the antithesis of, of feeling support. I mean, you want it, but like apples and oranges.
Yeah, totally agree. All right.
As half a dozen artists out there Google my name to go, you asshole.
Any publicity is good publicity. Awesome.
Social Capital is where I did my show.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Social Capital. I think I know of it. I don't.
Darn. I was hoping you'd be like, wow.
Well, a lot of clubs have closed down in the last little while, right? So
yeah,
I don't remember half of them.
Great space. It's great space.
Cool. So now that you're on vacation this week, and I thank you for taking a little time off, what's your plans moving forward? What's in the what's waiting for you?
Well, that's a really hard question to answer for everyone. But I am going to bring back both of the shows, that the kid show on a regular basis, like every blank at blank o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna like bring back the other show, Desperately Seeking the Exit, also as a once a week thing. I think it might be a Wednesday matinee, because I think a lot of us in New York especially are missing that we can't. Yeah, and like there's even more people now who are not going to work who can go to a matinee. So it also really works because then the UK can watch it at like 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing about this pandemic. It's taught me how to make my work accessible to anywhere.
Yes.
The hard part is like, I only know how to do press releases in New York and Los Angeles and Edinburgh. I don't know how to do press releases for the whole world. You know?
I know, that's the problem.
What's the one thing everyone in the world reads? I don't know.
You're preaching to the choir here.
I don't think CNN's going to do a story on me. Yeah.
Well, you never know. They might run out of stuff to talk
I mean,
about.
it is like, what's yours? What do you? I mean, what's your plan?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I just keep plugging away. Social media has been fantastic to me. I've been reaching out to everybody and anybody. Like I said, everybody's stuck at home right now, so everybody is clamoring to talk to other people. So it's been fantastic in that regard.
Yeah.
But I understand you have to reaching out to the world because the radio station plays in Canada, the US, and the UK just because of our licensing. But I've been doing interviews with Australia, Mexico, China. I try to everybody in the world because music theater is everywhere. And that's what I'm trying to reach out to, but I have no idea how I'm doing it.
So do you think that the pandemic kind of made you like widen your lens a little bit?
I always had the world in mind, but it has given me the opportunity to sit down and force me to reach out to everybody.
Great.
That's it. So it's been, honestly, I hate to say it, but this COVID-19 has helped my business. It's
same thing.
Yeah. I know you don't want to, but you know what? You have to strike while the iron's hot and take advantage.
You know how many times, like, look, I didn't have to go to Canada to teach that class if I would have known about how to use something like Zoom, which did exist for many years. There's other things like it as well. But like, I was always like, nope, I have to always be teaching in the room. I need the people in the room.
Yeah.
And that's like, why was I doing that? You know? So now I'm like, I am never going to have you in the room. You're always Yeah. I mean, we should all be able to teach in our underwear.
I will not say what I'm wearing right now.
Please don't.
And that's why we do no video for the radio station. But awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Peter, and talking to us today about everything.
It's always a pleasure to speak to someone else with two first names.
I'm glad. Now, before you go, I do ask 3 questions of all my guests. Now, there's no right or wrong answers for them, but there is one wrong answer.
Okay.
I just want to give you the heads up on that. All right.
What's the prize?
Pardon?
Is there a prize?
My admiration. So
your support, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I always support everybody I talk to. So that's awesome. But first question, if you're prepared.
Yeah.
Weber or Sondheim?
Weber.
Okay. And why?
Oh, because he's just so corny. He's so much more entertaining. Sondheim is so serious.
Okay. That's a legitimate answer. And
well, to Phantom of the Opera is now going to be streaming on our devices.
Yeah, I think the 25th.
Horrendous, so I really want to see it.
And love, what is it? The sequel to Phantom. Oh man, I've completely.
That's the
Love
one.
Never Dies. Oh, you're talking about Love Never Dies. Oh, okay, I thought you had because the Phantom just streamed last week.
It was so good.
I didn't see it.
Right. Yeah, the Brits are doing like you only have 48 hours, and after that, tough shit.
Exactly. they know what they're doing over there. But
I also just watched a British version, stage version of Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, I know that exists. I didn't. Oh, I wish I'd seen that.
Cool. It's actually endorsed by the company that owns it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done like first of all, it's always interesting to see a UK company take on like anything that's very Americana, which of course that's iconic. If you don't know, Night of the Living Dead is an iconic film because it's like one of the first real zombie films that seemed like it could actually happen, like Dracula and Frankenstein. You know, that's not really going to happen. The zombie thing, look, we're living in it now. We're actually living in Night of the Living Dead right now.
Pretty much.
It also was the first major. It wasn't meant to be major, but it became a major Hollywood blockbuster ticket sales wise with a non-white leading man.
Yeah, there are so many interesting stories about that movie. Like it didn't reserve the copyrights, so it was able to anybody could copy it and sell it. Like it's such a great movie and such a great story and everything behind
Made
it.
it for $110,000, or maybe even less, like $10,000. And I think it made $3 million.
Oh yeah, it is iconic and classic and brilliant, and anybody should go see it. And it's funny thing is it's not that scary or gory.
It's not. It's suspenseful, and it also has a soundtrack that runs through the whole thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great movie. All right, so that was the correct roundabout answer to the first question. So, awesome. All right, question number 2. They say you should never work with animals or kids. What's the funniest, craziest thing that's happened to you in one of your kids' shows that involved children?
Gosh. Oh my gosh, there's so many. But one that happened recently. So my show is very much like a Mad Libs, where I'll just like stop the action and go, and then what happened? Just to like let them kind of fill in the blank. And there was like I don't know, I think the character was like a dwarf and a horse, let's say. They were having an issue. And I said, and then what did the dwarf do? And this kid, he's probably like 7, he said, he shot him. And I was like, okay, so now I have to reenact that. Jeez. How am I going to do that? And thank God my brain led me down the path of we shot the horse out of a cannon at a circus.
Nice. Good save. Good save.
Great story, Pete. Great story.
That's awesome. Kids, you can, why? Never work with them because you never know what's going to come out of their head or out of their mouth. But good answer. All right, final question.
Yes.
Here we go. And I don't know how relevant it is right now, but eating food in the theater, audience members, yes or no?
No.
Very succinct, very straightforward, very quick, and correct.
Thank you.
No problem. Because now it's weird because we're online, so everybody's eating while watching this stuff. I hope it doesn't translate into real life.
I have people eating during my online shows, and I go off on them.
Really?
What's the one thing that we're all learning during this delightful pandemic is that the microphones on our computers are really good.
Yeah.
So even if you're like sitting back and you're just reaching into a bag of potato chips, to everybody else tuned in, it sounds like you are tearing down the Eiffel Tower. It is so loud and grating.
Yeah.
And this is why now I have to hire someone who lives, 50 miles away to log in to my meetings to mute people who are eating cheese doodles during my freaking show. The kids, you can't do that. The kids, you can't do that. And they also feel like they can just completely just scream at their screens in their homes.
Yeah.
And that, none of the other kids around the world who are watching will hear that. They don't realize that. And I don't blame them because I say some pretty stupid things that the whole world can see, and I don't always realize it. I think some of them might have even happened in the past 45 minutes.
Nice. Very nice. Well, those were 3 correct answers.
I am so glad I finally got something right today.
There you go. It's been a good day. You won that. You're going to go back to Disney World. Ride all the rides.
After this, I'm going.
Nice. All right. Well, again, Peter, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about everything. And if in the future you've got some stuff going, let me know. I'll help promote it.
You'll know.
Okay. Awesome. I can't wait to check it out. And if you ever want to do your show up here, let me know. I'll see if that place is still open up the stairs.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. That was Peter Michael Marino here on Be Our Guest. Tune in next week as we talk to a new guest or guests about their love, life, and passion. That is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov, and I'll see you when I see you.